Welcome back, children. This is the second part of the chapter Human Skeleton and the Skin. So we had learned in the last part that the human skeleton is of two types, the appendicular skeleton and the axial skeleton. Can you remember which bones are there in the axial skeleton? So in the axial skeleton, the bones of the skull, the rib cage and the spine are of the axial skeleton. And the appendicular skeleton is made up of the bones of the arms and the bones of the legs, and together it forms the human skeleton. Let's first learn about the axial skeleton. Now the axial skeleton, we know it is made up of the bones of the head. So all the bones which are present in the head, that is your skull, comes under the axial skeleton. All the bones here you can find, so many bones are there and all these bones are joined together in between. So all these bones forms the rib cage which comes in the axial skeleton. And also all the bones of your spinal, that is the vertebral column, also comes in the axial skeleton. The first bone or the first part of the axial skeleton is the skull. It is the topmost part that is in our head, and the face together forms the skull. Also, the skull protects a very important organ in our body, that is the brain. So the brain is protected in our skull. Why it is protected in the skull? Because it protects the brain from any type of injury. Because our brain is the most delicate part of our body. So now the skull is formed of two types of bones. That is the bones of our head and the bones of our face. So all the head bones and all the face bones together forms the skull. Now there are 22 number of bones in our skull. So you have to remember this, that in our skull there are 22 bones. Out of the 22, 8 bones are present in our head and 14 bones are present in our face. So total we have 22 bones in our skull. Out of that, 8 bones are present in our head and 14 are present in our face. Also, you will find that you can easily move your jaw. That is your lower jaw you can move. But you cannot move the other part of your skull. That is because the lower jaw is the movable joint. That is, they have a joint at the corner which moves. It is a movable bone. And all the other bones cannot move. The second part of the axial skeleton is the rib cage. Now do one thing, touch your chest. On the right side, you can find that there are few bones. Now touch your left side. You will find that the same number of bones are also present on your left side. So that means there are few bones which are present on your left and the right side. Now do one thing, touch the middle part of your chest. You will find that there is a flat bone which is present. So together all the bones form the chest. Now in the chest there are 25 bones. 12 pairs of bones are present on each side. That is, on the left side you have 12 bones and on the right side you have 12 bones. And these 12 bones are attached to the 25th bone, that is the sternum, in between. The sternum is the flat bone. The chest bone are called as the rib cage. Now why they are called as rib cage? Because they form as a cage structure, and that is the reason it is formed as a rib cage, because of forming a cage like structure. The third part of the axial skeleton is the spine. Now we also call it as the backbone or the vertebral column. You can call it as anything. You can call it as a spine, you can call it as a vertebral column, or you can call it as a backbone. Now the bones of the spine protects our spinal cord. So there is a spinal cord which runs from our brain, and this spinal cord is protected by the vertebral column. Now these spines which are present, they are all attached to each other. The bones which are present in the spines are all attached to each other in a pad-like structure. That is like a padlock. There is a lock in between all the bones, and it protects our spinal cord from any type of injury. Now these bones are the irregular bones. They don't have a specific shape. There are total number 33 bones. So in our spine, or you can say the vertebral column, is made up of 33 number of bones. Next is the appendicular skeleton. Appendicular skeleton is made up of the bones of your arms and the bones of your legs. Now in detail about how many bones are there, what are the different types of bones in the appendicular skeleton, you will be studying about them in your later classes. But here you have to just remember that the appendicular skeleton is made up of two types of bones. That is the bones on your upper part, that is the bones of your arms, and the bones of your lower part, that is the bones of your legs. Now there are 206 number of bones in our body. All bones are of different shape and size. All of the bones should be attached with something. So these bones are attached by the joints. That is, in between the bones we have the joints. Now joints can also be of two types. That is, the movable joint and the immovable joint. Now if I have to define a joint, you can say that the place where two or more than two bones are connected to each other are called as the joints. And the movable joints means the joints can move easily. That is, you can move the bones of your legs, your arms. Immovable joints are the joints where you cannot move. That is, you cannot move your skull. Okay, then you cannot move your chest bones, you cannot move the chest bones. These are all immovable joints. But in the skull, there is one bone, that is your lower jaw. That is the movable joint. So in the skull, only the lower jaw is movable and all the other bones are not movable. So this is called as the two type of joints, the movable joints and the immovable joints. Now the movable joints are of three types. That is, now you cannot move all the part of your body in all directions. You can only move them in a particular direction. So according to that, we have three types of joints. First one is the hinge joint. Now hinge joint is present in your elbows and your knees. Try to move your leg. Can you rotate your leg in a 360-degree angle? And also try to move your hand, which moves from the elbow. That also cannot be moved in the 360-degree angle. You can move it only in 180-degree angle. That is, your front part of the arm cannot go behind. It can only come in front. It can only move in one direction. Same happens with your leg as well. From the knee, the lower part of your leg can only move in the backward direction. It can't be moved in the forward direction. So this type of joint is called as a hinge joint, where the joint allows the movement of bones only in one direction. It moves in 180-degree angle. You cannot move it in 360. You can only move it in the 180-degree angles. And the examples are the elbow and the knee joint. Another type of joint is the ball and socket joint. That is, it forms a ball and a socket. It is attached to each other. Now these type of joints can allow the movement in 360-degree angle. For example, your shoulder. Try to move your hand from your shoulder. You can move your hand in a 360-degree angle. So these type of joints are called as ball and socket joints. Also your hip. Try to move your leg from your hip. You can move your leg in 360-degree angle. This is called as the ball and socket joint. Third type of joint is the gliding joint. Now in this type of joint, the bones can only slide over each other. That is, if you will try to move your wrist and the ankle joint, it can only slide over each other. So these are called as the gliding joint. Now the outer covering of the body is called as the skin. The skin protects our internal parts of the body. It is also as a sense organ, and it also protects us from heat, cold and other things. Even the skin is sensitive and we can easily understand if a particular substance is hot, cold and what is the weather around, or whether it is rough or smooth. Now skin color varies from person to person. This is because of a pigment that is called as melanin. Now melanin is present in your body which decides the color of your skin. The color of the skin is transferred from your parents, that is, it is genetic. Now the percentage of the melanin will decide the fairness or the darkness of the person. Also, melanin protect us from the ultraviolet sun rays. So the people who are having more amount of melanin, that is if they are dark, they are more protected from the ultraviolet rays. And the people who do not have more amount of melanin, they are more affected by the ultraviolet sun rays. Now the structure of our skin. So our skin is made up of three parts. The first is the outer layer, that is called as the epidermis. Then we have the dermis, from where our hair arises, that is the hairs which are present on our skin arises from the dermis. And then we have the subcutaneous or the hypodermis. So these are the three layers of our skin, that is epidermis, dermis and the hypodermis. Now also in our skin there are glands which are present. So the glands are the sweat glands which releases sweat when we do heavy exercise. Now why they release sweat is, that is to reduce the body temperature. Our body temperature is constant at 37 degrees Celsius. So when you do heavy exercise or you run or you play, your temperature of the body might increase. So for that, the sweat is released so that our body is normalized and the temperature can be reduced. Now one thing you might have observed, that when the age is less, that is at your age or when the people are young, their skin is tight. But as they go old, so the skin tries to shrink. That is, they have folds and wrinkles on their skin. That is, as the people grow old, the fat which is there beneath our skin, it reduces. And that is the reason the skin becomes folded and it causes wrinkles. So with age, the fat reduces and because of which wrinkles are caused. Also that our skin protects us from any internal harm. It also protects our bones and the organ system. The skin also acts as a moisturizer. Also, the skin releases sweat, that is, it helps to regulate our body temperature. And obviously, our skin is a sensory organ, that is, it responds to touch. If someone pinches you, you immediately pull your hand behind because because our skin is a sensory organ.